Hey there, it's Shannon,
And Micah.
and we are Shinebright, the co-founders and coaches at Shinebright. So nice to see you. Today we wanted to chat with all of you about how to keep an effective mindset in a job search. And stay to the end of the video because we're going to talk you through why knowing your weaknesses is actually one of the keys to having a healthy and positive mindset through a job search. All right, I think there's a lot of pieces to a successful job search, right? We know a lot of knowing what you want, knowing your strengths, knowing the direction you want to head, and then having a plan, right? And then having all the tools in place, right? An updated resume, snazzy LinkedIn, having a clear strategic plan for all the different parts and pieces. But I think something that, might surprise you is knowing your weaknesses or your blind spots can actually be a tool to staying really effective in your job search. So what do you think about that, Micah? Is that something you've heard before?
Yeah, it's incredibly interesting to me whenever I work with a client and they come and they say, I'm doing these things and I just feel stuck. And then we dig in, and it is those weaknesses that are showing up and kind of contributing to that stuck feeling in the job search, because sometimes our weaknesses we're blind to, right? That's why they're called blind spots. So it's easy to get stuck. It's easy to understand why. So we're here to help you understand how to carve out of that, avoid that, and stay in a healthy mindset and good patterns in the job search.
Yeah, let's start with some definitions, right? So I think, we operate within the framework of strengths when we work with our clients, and our coaching process is strengths based. And I think in the concept of the strengths framework, the opposite of a strength is, a weakness, right? And really what that means is this idea that this quality of ours that has the potential for us at our best, right? If we overuse that quality or use that quality without self-awareness or intention, it can turn into an actual weakness, and it can contribute to stress, overwhelm, exhaustion, getting stuck, all these things. When it turns into a blind spot is when we don't have any self-awareness that this weakness actually exists, right? And I think the key to why a blind spot can be damaging in a job search is that it's, like Micah said, these patterns of behavior or thought that you're practicing that are determining how you're showing up in your job search, how you're thinking about it, how you're showing up in networking conversations or interviews, and you're not aware that you're doing it. And if it's connected to a weakness, it actually is getting in your way, or it's a block of some sort, or it's a hindrance. And so back to kind of where we started this conversation, we're going to talk you through why, really having, good self-awareness around not only your strengths, right, in these areas of potential greatness, but like, what are those weaknesses too? So how do you see blind spots, weaknesses showing up and getting in people's way during a job search?
So it's often not surprising to the person when we dig in and do self-reflection and kind of track what's happening in their job search, because it's usually something that they consider a strength, but it goes into overdrive. Right? So for instance, some people are really curious, and it's one of the greatest qualities about them. They look at something and they're interested in it, and they dig in and they want to learn. Yeah. And I have a lot of clients who have that as a strength, and they use that in the jobs that they have. But when it comes to job searching, they dig in, and their curiosity leads them to just spend hours and hours without any focus on what's the purpose of this, or when can I stop it? When have I looked enough to understand what this role is, or how to, attack this aspect of the job search? And so what's happening is that thing that's a strength, that curiosity that drives them and leads to a growth mindset and all that stuff, it's actually hindering them in the same way every time. So it's just constant. And then they're feeling frustrated, and they don't have energy to reflect, because at that point, you're kind of off course.
Yeah, I think that's a great one and pretty common. And I would say one that I see a lot. So the strength shows up as being a problem solver, right? It's someone who sees, oh, this can be fixed, this can be improved, I can make this better. They often can be, able to find solutions that other people miss. When they're using this as a strength, they can think outside the box, or they're getting a lot of energy from being able to, make something work better or solve something. Mm-hmm. But at the other end of that spectrum, right, overusing that same strength, where they can get stuck is everything looks like a problem to them that needs to be solved, including themselves. So this can translate in a job search being really critical to self, right? Like, I'm not doing enough, I'm failing, am really messing up my job search, or I'm not progressing the way I need, or being really negative in terms of their prospects, right? Feeling like nothing's ever going to happen. There's scarcity in terms of opportunities, and just everything looks like a problem to them. So again, it's, two ends of the same spectrum. And I think, again, here's where we need some self-awareness. So if oh, okay, this is a weakness that I have, right? It allows you to make intentional choices to be able to recognize when you're slipping from problem solver, solution focused, to everything's a problem, everything's not working, I'm not doing anything right. And I think that's where the awareness needs to come in, so that you can recognize, like, ooh, okay, I've slipped out of my strengths and I'm in an old pattern that actually isn't serving me. It's not helpful to this job search or to the goals that I have. So how do I kind of get myself out of this negative space? So okay, so that's kind of the framework of, knowing your weaknesses and why that matters in terms of a job search. But what do you do next? So what do you do when you figure out, like, okay, this is a weakness, or this is a blind spot? How can they fix that, or address that?
Yeah, so that's actually the best part, because the self-awareness leads to the ability to take action through intentionality. So in the example of the problem solver that dips too far over, setting up some parameters for how they're going to maybe look for jobs, or have networking meetings to give them more information about who has this type of job and who that person is, so they can self-reflect instead of just going, I don't have this, right? And again, it's about building parameters based on what your blind spot is. Yep. For that curiosity-driven person, right, it's easy. Set a timer, figure out a consistent schedule that you're doing all the exciting investigation. But remember to post your goalpost, meaning know what the focus is and what the purpose of the research is, and set the parameter around the timing, so that you get to dig in and you get to use the strength to your benefit in the job search, but you don't dip over to that other side of the spectrum that's not helpful, that doesn't serve you, and that actually depletes you.
Yeah, no, those are all great. And I think, this is, what we do with our clients, right? It's all about how can you navigate a job search in a way that allows you to stay in your strengths for as much time as possible. And listen, let's be honest, a job search is hard, right? Even the best of us can get exhausted, overwhelmed, beat down. I think that's kind of normal and expected within a job search, but we don't have to stay there, right? We can have a rough day, we can have disappointments, right? But, trying to get off that roller coaster of emotions, or letting, the small disappointments just take you totally off track, is where we see a lot of our clients, before we start to work with them, really lose the sense of self, or lose their confidence, or start to really, question whether or not they're actually going to find a job, or, find a job that they actually love. And I think this is, what's really at stake here, right? Because I think mindset is the number one key to a successful job search. Because if you're feeling beat down, if you're feeling, a lack of confidence or negative about the whole job search in general, well, guess what? This starts to bleed into
the energy.
It's the energy, right? It starts to bleed into every interaction you have. It comes through in how you're interacting with, potential interviews and whatnot. And so getting back and having tools and the self-awareness to know when you're slipping into that space space, and then how to remedy that and get yourself back up into a positive, productive mindset and state where you can be taking action, taking good care of yourself, and like Micah said, having systems in place that can counter some of those vulnerabilities, weaknesses, blind spots, so they're not getting in your way or hindering you. So what else? Anything else to add?
Yeah, I just think the positive spin too is to, take stock of what the job search entails. There's a lot of parts and pieces. And Shannon was talking about a lot of the tactical. We've been talking about self-reflection as a good starting point. But knowing yourself and knowing the things you like to do and where you get your energy from, look at that list and see these are the things I'm going to enjoy about this process. I like getting on LinkedIn and I like making comments. I like writing a resume. I don't know if anyone says that, but maybe some of you do. Yeah. And then have that same awareness around the parts that are going to feel maybe I have to do it, but I don't love to do it. So how am I going to attack it from my strengths and from my awareness so I don't slip into that? So what I'm proposing really is a lot of forethinking, right? A lot of thinking before taking action, and then really setting up a plan. So if you know that you love that LinkedIn piece, do that in the afternoon when your energy might be low. If you know that updating the resume might actually, take a lot of brain power, then make sure you're assigning that to the part of day or afternoon or evening where you have more natural energy, right? So it's all about, again, knowing yourself, self-reflection, all these things we're talking about, being intentional and having a strategy.
Yep. Absolutely. And you don't have to do it alone, right? So, there's a lot of coaches out there who are creating processes and can guide and support you through these types of processes. So if you're struggling in your job search with your mindset or your strategy, find a coach, right, that can walk with you through this process. So that's it. Why knowing your weaknesses is actually pretty powerful and valuable in a job search to staying positive and getting some successful results and landing that job that you really want. So, okay, good luck out there. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye. Take care.